Our next speaker is Dr. Cindy Hauser. Cindy is the second speaker we have from ARI, that research powerhouse. She's senior scientist there. She specialises in ecological modelling, including survey design and adaptive management, and has worked on invasive hawkweed eradication, malleefowl conservation, use of detection dogs, and fire management planning, in addition to her comprehensive work on grassland restoration, basically wherever the maths takes her. So please welcome Cindy Hauser.
Thank you, Adrian, and hi everyone. This is work that has been carried out on Wadawurrung, Wurundjeri and Bunurong country, and I'd like to pay my respects to elders past and present, and of course extend that respect to the traditional owners we have present today as well. It's work that I've done in collaboration with Steve Sinclair and Kanran Liu, both colleagues at the Arthur Rylah Institute. It's funded by the Melbourne Strategic Assessment Program, which I'll call MSA from here on. And I'd also like to thank many other people who've contributed substantially to this work along the way. So I think everyone in this room knows even better than I do that grassland management and restoration requires planning and sustained effort over time. And the best approach tends to depend on the site conditions and context, and we've seen some really great examples of that already today. I think modelling can help with this process, and I hope I might persuade you of that today as well. I think modelling is really important as a way of developing a consistent rule set based on data. And it can help us estimate costs, risks and benefits associated with the management that we undertake. It also gives us an option for testing multiple strategies before we decide what to do on ground. So in this project, I'm focusing on the Victorian Volcanic Plains grassland. In the project that we're working on at the moment, we've developed a model of grassland response to management, and then we've laid on top of that the costs that are associated with management as well. One, and one, great. I assure you there are three things here, and I can count. Simulation of grassland management is what we do when we bring those modelling and costs together. And the process that we've developed to do that can accommodate up to 150 sites simulated across 40 years. So let's start with the model. And a model should always be based on data. That's where we get started. So we've got a bunch of in-field data of grassland change, mostly from the MSA program and the typical monitoring that goes on there, also some extra monitoring plots and additional information from CMAs supplied as well. And we've got that linked to what management was happening out there in the field as we're observing this grassland change, thanks to Parks Victoria and other managers. This information's fantastic, but it's a small source to get started with, and so we've also gone through a big expert elicitation process at ARI, calling on 22 different grassland experts, I'm sure several of them in the room, to pose different scenarios of grassland condition, environmental conditions, management options to predict what we think can happen to those grasslands over the course of a year. We bring all that data together and fit a model. And the model that we use focuses on plant cover and richness. We've got 18 different variables. They're covering things like thermiter cover, serrated tussock cover, C3 grass cover, artichoke thistle cover, and so on. We've also got a collection of different management actions. We've got 21 variables that reflect the way that we do management, things like spot spraying weeds, potentially targeting different groups of weeds, the way we go about planned burns, what time of year it happens, grazing, sowing seed, planting tube stock, and so on. Then we've got 6 more variables that relate to the site and the weather, so stuff like rainfall and phosphorus. We bring these things together with the data and predict what those plant cover and richness variables are going to look like 1 year later. And then a year passes and we can feed that information back into the start and get a rolling simulation going across many years. Second component was the costs of management. So we have collated past quotes and contracts together to understand how has cost to do management in the past. And then we've developed some basic rules to generalise from those existing contracts and quotes and estimate what we think it would cost to do different kinds of management into the future. Usually scaling by the site area, but in some cases scaling by the area that's affected by the management action. So a couple of examples. Here we've got planned burns and site area along the horizontal axis there. Intuitively, it's going to cost more the bigger the area that you're exercising that planned burn. But there's different sites with different levels of complexity too. So if you've got an area that's relatively homogeneous, it's a regular shape like a square or a rectangle, that's a relatively simple situation to be dealing with, compared to something more like the complex one there on the top right, where we might be bordering residential areas, have a road through the middle, maybe there are some important assets in there that we need to plan around, irregular corners. It's going to cost more to manage a planned burn in that kind of area for the same area covered. A second example for you, when it comes to spot spraying of reeds, what really counts is the area that's affected, so not just the area of the site, but the percentage of weed cover at the site as well. And I've got here the cost going up depending with the weed cover, but also itemising it a little bit, we found that herbicide and planting costs were a very small contribution of what was going on. The biggest cost contributing to these contracts is the labour. Also, I've got that shading there around the total costs there. That's an indication of the variation and the uncertainty that we saw in the data. You can see that it's enormous and it's anchored on that cost for labour. So there's huge variation from contract to contract about how that can go. Once we've got that model of the ecological system and the cost model, we can bring it together and start running some different scenarios. So in our case, we were really focused, like Nick talked about in the previous presentation, on natural temperate grassland and how much area was going to qualify under that EPPZ definition of natural temperate grassland. But there are other different ecological outcomes you could be aiming for here too. You could focus on just native grass cover, just the richness of forbs, other ways of defining this if that suits you. And then we scaled all of our costs in terms of dollar value in the year 2022. So here's 3 different management strategies that we rolled out for 10 years as an example. The initial conditions of this place were of an uncropped C3 pasture with less than 20% needlegrass. You can see the blue line along the bottom there. If we do nothing, we get nothing. Not a big surprise. The green one is an example of a management strategy with periodic burns and annual spot spraying. You can see that quite rapidly, within 2 years, that's a good match with what Nick had there, we had great, a really high proportion of the area qualifying as natural temperate grassland, and a couple blips following each of those periodic burns, but still holding at that definition. The third example I've got there in the red is one that starts off with an aerial spray across the whole area and then follows up with a small amount of restoration and low-level spot spraying. You get great improvements in those first couple of years, but we can see that that low level of spot spraying is just not enough to hold things and sustain it into the long term. The other thing we can do with this information then is kind of compare a whole bunch of different strategies. I think I've got 20 there in that graph, and again think about area of natural temperate grassland as our goal, and think about it relative to the cost of each of the strategies that we're road testing. So I've got dots there, blue, red and green, corresponding to that first example there. The no management, costs nothing, gets nothing, right down in the bottom left. We're not too pleased with that kind of thing. We've got something cost not too much, getting not too much with the red example there, and our green one sitting in the top left. That's a great place to be in the top left, because that's telling us that we're achieving our ecological aims at not too high a cost. We've got some other things that are also quite a big cluster of things there, but also things sort of top middle, top right. They're getting the ecological gains that we want, but they're costing a lot more to get there. So to finish up, I think modelling is a really great way to help us develop general consistent guidelines and to test scenarios before we're committing to on-ground work. I think the models that we're building can and should be updated, absolutely. We know that there's going to be more monitoring data coming through this program every year. There's also going to be new management technologies potentially that we could be trialling as well. We know that there's a few weaknesses in the model at the moment. It's not great at capturing forb growth and what forbs do for the ecosystem. And modelling should really support and not replace local expertise, I think. I'm a really strong believer that decisions are made by people and not by machines. But I think this kind of modelling, if we're looking at vast expanses and multiple sites, can offer us a baseline that's based on data that's already out there. And then we can use local expertise to adjust from these when we understand what the differences at individual sites are. I think that's it. Thank you.
I'm so looking forward to seeing the fine detail of that data when it becomes publicly available. It's going to be a real insight. We've got some momentum here, and it's just great to see so much grassy action and grassy love in one place. Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. Fantastic, and that's it.